Right now in St. Louis, Mark and Patricia McCloskey, they've been charged with felony unlawful use of a weapon and a misdemeanor charge of fourth-degree assault. You may remember those names because they were the couple who were caught on video pointing guns directly at protesters who were marching through their neighborhood. So a couple things happening right now. The governor of Missouri has been saying, before the charges were even announced, that he is prepared to pardon this couple. And now, after the charges were announced, Missouri's AG, Attorney General Eric Schmidt, he said he's seeking to dismiss the case. This is a little bit of what he said.
Such as this one would have a chilling effect on Missourians exercising the right to self-defense. The law in Missouri is clear and must be protected. We're in the middle of a crisis of violence in our major cities here in Missouri, including in St. Louis. My office is committed to working with law enforcement, state and federal partners, and community leaders to protect our communities.
So he called it a political prosecution, and there's been a bit of a battle between the chief prosecutor in St. Louis. Her name is Kimberly Gardner. She's a Black woman. Bit of a long battle between the police union and her, the AG and her, the governor of Missouri and her, and now it comes to this. Lavanya, I'll start with you. I mean, does anything surprise you at this point? I do. I think I struggle constantly with like my feelings about how we use our criminal justice system. And then also the fear of like, what if I were participating in a protest, just walking, and someone pointed their gun at me and they got scared or they tripped, or how bad this could have been. And to see, you know, the people in power saying that there's no problem with this behavior.
Yeah, I think we're seeing white supremacist patriarchy doing what it's supposed to do, right? Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate that folks have been able to like rally around issues of, you know, anti-Blackness or just racism, xenophobia, sexism, you know, homophobia, transphobia, all of that, and began to make progress. But we can see that sometimes that progress is stagnated or kind of halted or challenged a little bit whenever we have folks like this who are coming outside doing something that if this was 5 years ago, surely would have gotten arrested for, likely anywhere, even in conservative states. But the tricky thing about white supremacy, patriarchy, is the way that it's able to shapeshift over time. And so none of this, absolutely none of this is surprising. And in fact, white supremacy is doing exactly what it should do, which is, you know, protecting those that it needs to protect, adjusting to the way in which the times have evolved, and continuing to harm like the most vulnerable bodies that, you know, are within this nation. So I'm not at all surprised.
Rebecca, part of a conversation happening online that I saw, people were like, can you imagine if things were switched and this couple were Black? Could you ever imagine the governor coming out and saying, I'm going to involve myself in the prosecution of this Black couple who were pointing guns at a bunch of white people who were protesting, I don't know, math or something, and pardon them because that's okay?
Look, if a Black couple did this, I don't even know if they would be alive right now to be pardoned.
Right.
You know, like that's the sort of structure that we're dealing with. And I think, you know, like what was just said was like this structure is created to protect white people no matter what they do. And, you know, we know the history in this area in St. Louis that has been the rightful site of uprisings by Black folks because white folks are so entrenched in power. And what we're seeing now, what struck me about that image is this is what white people do when they're afraid of losing just a little bit of it. Not even being treated like how Black people have been treated, but just Black people being something closer to equal. And it is a challenge to deal with this because, again, we don't want to uphold the prison industrial complex is a way to solve all of our conflicts, right? Especially when we're trying to undo it. But the fact that even that broken system cannot be applied to white people who have done something so dangerous and so just obviously wrong. If you know anything about gun safety, that picture is a mess. A lot of conservatives were making fun of these people because like you don't know how to hold a gun, you know. But it's just
right
such
out of her
stark,
hand.
exactly. It's such a stark example of like inequality in the way that it's built into our justice system, that these people are being protected.
There was so much about this that like could just be broken down into different conversations. Even their biggest defense was and there's a discrepancy between if the gate was open or it wasn't, but their biggest defense is this is a private neighborhood, a private street, and obviously like your doorway is private, and that makes sense, your driveway. But even the conversation about why private neighborhoods and actual streets, like other human beings, tax-paying human beings in this city are not allowed on every street in the city. Even the history of how that begun, it all comes, it's white supremacy. It's all rooted in that. And how just even when I think about that, that's been so normal to me, like, oh yeah, sure. But how not like normal that seems, that there are actual streets that you're not allowed on. There's a gate there. That's wild.
I'm used to it. I live in Los Angeles. I'm used to gated communities, and not being able to walk through it just seems normal, actually, to me.
Yeah.
But they were walking through the middle of a gated
Angeles
community?
Yeah.
We just had in San Francisco
a gated community.
That's an interesting question.
I said, why would you protest? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rebecca.
They were taking a shortcut to the mayor's house.
All right.
Or I'm not sure. I thought the mayor's house was in that neighborhood.
I think so too, but I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
Which is also a whole other conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Rebecca, did I cut you off?
Oh, I was just going to talk about how in San Francisco we had a case where there was a similar thing of a private street, and someone bought out the street from underneath the sort of like rich people who live there, and it was a big controversy about like who can park here, who can be here, and like these are just like this history is a reflection of American apartheid and like keeping people out of certain areas, and there's ways that it can be subverted. But I'm glad this case at least is getting us to talk about what does it mean to have a private street that like only certain people are allowed to walk on.
Yeah. There's also like in LA, private beaches that aren't technically private, but you wouldn't tell by like how the person who lives in front of that area of the beach, how they are governing it. Different restaurants and neighborhoods, in cities all over the country, like mark off valet only when it actually is totally perfectly legal and fine for everybody to park there. There's just so many ways.
Because I will pull up to a valet spot.
It depends on the city. It depends on the city and what agreement is made. So don't do that. But in a lot of cities, areas that are marked off as valet, they're just really taking over the street, and it's just being seen as normal.
I did not know that.
Let's find them all and go and park there. Go and stand there. Listen, I will fly there. I'm down for it.
Yeah, I didn't know I could do that. Like, I didn't know it was perfectly fine to do that. I had no idea.
I mean, I'm sure it depends because in LA
rude.
parking is wild.
Rude. Right.
Yeah. But even like think about it. If you pay taxes in a city, is it not wild that somebody can tell you only people who live on this street can park here? Only people who are going to eat at this restaurant can park here.
I mean, that's how Paradise Cove is, and I don't really mind because it's not a lot of people on the beach.
It's all like.
But I get it. It's wrong.
Yeah.
Especially the way they kind of patrol up and down the beach is wrong. It's like they used to do in Compton. My dad told me at one point that Black people were absolutely not allowed in Compton. If you were Black and going through Compton, you were going to have a problem. Mm-hmm. Blew my mind. Couldn't believe it. But I've seen the tapes. It's a real thing. And so I feel like this kind of evolved into that, but still, just coming from a place where, I mean, just picture not allowed to be able to walk through Compton. And then, somebody.
That's happening. That's a byproduct of gentrification that's happening.
Well, now, but I'm saying,
now.
now, but like for years, it wasn't like that. In Inglewood, for years, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
But before gentrification, before it was at one point before, you know, black people got there or ended up moving into those neighborhoods, it used to be a thing where they couldn't be over there.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that, you know, that's even a thing. And now you have gated communities and places like that where, you know, you could be arrested or, you know, be cited for trespassing or something like that just walking through there.